All right, welcome to today's daily vlog. Today I'm going to talk about basically that at the end of the day, the training program that you come up with really boils down to the product of the environment that you're in. Everybody's going to have a different approach and a different philosophy, but at the end of the day, you can still have the same culture and the same mindset, but it can be executed differently, just like, for example, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I've actually had a couple conversations today about feed the cats, which is Tony Holler's mentality for sprint training. And it's not really even just like the sprint training, it's like the mindset and the culture behind developing speed and optimizing performance in contact sports or field sports. Basically it's about quality over quantity to the truest extent. It's very simple, but at the end of the day, some situations can't afford for the exact exercises and the exact way that Tony Holler gets things done. But the mindset that's driving what is happening in these other places, that can be the same, but the environment that you're in is what drives that. So for example, I try to find ways to integrate this mentality as much as possible, like being okay with, not leaving it all out on the, not destroying an athlete, one day because I want to do something positive with them the next day and then the day after that. That's something that has really resonated with me. Athletes, we don't need to have them walking out of the gym. We don't need to have them barely walking out of the gym. We want to give them just enough so that we, stress their system. They get the stimulus they need, and then we move on from there, and get them to properly recover. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things about, like Tony Holler's method, or Tony Holler and what he preaches, is that recovery is first, and you have to have that as a staple. Like, that has to be programmed, right? Like, recovery is programmed. Like, for his lactate days that he does, he always has a day off after because of how important the recovery is from that. Not just physically, but not just, muscularly or, whatever from physiologically, but from a nervous system standpoint. So when it boils down to it, you're a product of the environment, and you got to really make sure that, your philosophy is in check, and kind of like what you believe in is in check. And then whatever that philosophy is and whatever you believe in, the actual program, the actual exercises, sets, reps, focus, emphasis, blah, 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 that'll drive from it. So if you are, Olympic lift, not Olympic lift, right? If you're on, that's even one of these other philosophies, right? So if you're the Olympic lift, your situation will really drive how that's going to happen. If you're not Olympic lift, your situation will drive, and I guess the higher up you get in professional collegiate, the more you the more you get to control what your environment is, and the farther away you are from that, the less control you have. At the end of the day, we're not with the athletes 24/7, right? You're only with the athletes for, 2 hours a day. If you have, other meetings or you're involved in their treatment, but at the end of the day, you're only with these athletes for maybe 10% of their day. So, the amount of control that we have is so limited anyway that, and I was talking to, my guy, Nick Massioli, and, he said it perfectly today. He's like, man, you got to just control what you can control. It's so simple, but it's so powerful. You can't get caught up on things that you literally can't control. And if you are in an environment, or you're in a spot where you can't create a better environment, or you don't have control over the environment, or, even if it's a good environment, there's still things you can't control. You can't get hung up on those. And you only have to kind of respond to what is going on. You have to respond to, all right, this is the problem we have to solve. This is what we need to attack today. You know what I mean? Or we need to organize this because of this. Even though that isn't what I want to happen or what we want to happen ideally, well, you know what? It is. So what are you going to do about it? Are you going to ignore it and keep, applying the stimulus that you know really feel is important, even though you are aware of the fact that there's something that is conflicting it. So at the end of the day, like programs are really a product of the environment, but the environment and those programs are driven by, like, what it actually looks like is driven by a philosophy, driven by a culture. And I think, like, laying down culture and a foundation is something, I think obviously it takes time, but it takes, somebody at the head understanding what that is and living it day in and day out. And it's hard to figure out. It is, because there's situations, even if something works, there's times where it won't work. And even when something doesn't work, there's times where it will work. Like if you look at, just simply like, if you take a test, there's everybody's taking a math test and, they've, inputted something wrong. They've done the problem wrong, but somehow they got the answer right. And now their grade is, a 90% instead of an 80%. Well, just because you got the answer right doesn't mean you did it the right way. You know what I mean? And it goes for the same, you could do the problem right, and then when you write it down, you write it down wrong. So you don't really know the interactions between what is going on, and sometimes those situations happen in training. And it's hard to really decipher this is that, this is that. So you got to find what you believe in, find foundations to your method, your model, and just run with it and live with it, and then be able to back it up and always be trying to analyze, like, what do we need to change? Is this still right? If as coaches, our job is to put our athletes in the best position possible, and that position is dependent on the environment. It's dependent, and we have to decipher this is the best plan for them according to what I know, what I believe, what I've learned, and since I've been granted this position to be able to make these decisions for them, I can be sound that this is the way to go. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. I've had a lot of conversations actually today about things along this line, and that's just what has been gotten, my thinking driving. So other than that, have a good night.